Talking Heads, talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I am the Chief Content Officer and Channel Analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for the show. I am joined today, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, our Chief Strategist. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Rich. I have not traveled this week as you have, so I have no travel-related stories to share. How about you?
What a lovely softball there. So as regular listeners and viewers probably know, my hometown is Seattle. I am actually in Dallas this week attending the 20s Vision 2024 conference. And it turned out to be relatively simple to get here, but this was not a sure thing when I left home Tuesday morning, because as you may or may not have read, SeaTac, my hometown airport, got hacked last weekend. And that was like Saturday, Eric, and I was flying down here to Dallas on Tuesday, and they were still down in a lot of ways. Like the signage was dark, and the airport Wi-Fi wasn't functional. The baggage system wasn't working, so they couldn't like scan barcodes. I mean, if they lost your suitcase earlier this week, it was just gone, right? Because they didn't know where it had actually wound up. So interesting. And as I quipped online, here's an airport disruption that nobody can blame on CrowdStrike. This was hackers.
Yeah, sounds like they need better IT support somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Let's dive into our story of the week because it takes place in the world of security. And, full disclosure, I'm going to touch upon news this week from a company called SaaS Alerts. SaaS Alerts is a channel mastered client. And part of why I call that out is alert regular members of our audience are going to think, hey, wait a minute, didn't you shout out SaaS Alerts like 2 or 3 episodes ago? Yes, we did. No, that has nothing to do with our business relationship with SaaS Alerts. It's just, once again, they announced something this week that I think is kind of telling. So quickly, their news. SaaS Alerts, for folks who don't know, that this is a cloud security platform, specifically a SaaS security platform. Up until this week, they have sold the software, and you as an MSP take care of the software yourself. As of this week, they now have a fully managed version of that service. So for an extra 75 cents per user per month, they will set it up, they'll configure it, they'll set auto remediation rules, they'll handle all the monitoring day to day for you, and take all of that off of your hands. And part of the idea is just that having somebody else do all that for you is probably going to be beneficial to a lot of overstretched MSPs. Some of that has to do with the fact that security is a complex field, and who knows it better than security specialists like a security vendor. Who knows a security solution better than the vendor who wrote it, right? You start kind of putting those pieces together, and you get to the theme that I really kind of want to talk about this week, Eric, which is just this idea that I increasingly have that managed versions of security solutions and services are going to become more and more and more popular. The common wisdom about those kinds of offerings in the past has been they are mostly for smaller MSPs that don't have the resources to handle that kind of work in-house. Larger companies, particularly larger ones, or MSPs large enough to have their own SOC and maybe a security specialist or two, they're going to want to handle that stuff in-house. I'm not so sure anymore, for all the reasons I just outlined. Security is complex. You really have to invest to keep up with it. Even if you go through that time and expense, are you really going to know a platform in particular, a security solution in particular, as well as the company that actually created that solution? So, IT spending is pretty strong this year, Eric. Gartner expects it to go up 7.5%. Security spending, even stronger. That's, according to Gartner, going to go up 13.4% this year. MDR spending, managed detection and response spending, according to Canalys, that's going to go up 50% this year from a much smaller base. And I should double emphasize so that the SaaS alert people don't yell at us that their offering is not an MDR in any way, shape, or form. I'm just bringing that up as an example of an outsourced managed security service that is outgrowing the security market as a whole by leaps and bounds, and outgrowing the IT market as a whole by leaps and bounds, because I think there is an underlying, not just financial, but security and safety logic to going with a managed offering, even for larger MSPs a lot of the time.
Yeah, Rich, your story this week really shines a light on the challenge that MSPs have today, keeping ahead of their clients' needs and requirements. And I was just on two different calls today with two different MSP clients of mine that both are struggling with the workload that they have and supporting it with their existing staff and needing to hire more staff, and the challenge they're having in getting the folks that they need. So they're looking at solutions that they can basically include in their bundle that come with some labor tied to it. So whether that's cybersecurity or something else, they are relying more and more, or looking more and more toward vendor relationships that can actually take some of that labor cost out of the equation. They can lean on them for their expertise and their teams so that they can focus on being as strategic as possible for their client relationships, which hint is a harbinger of my tip of the week here this week. So it's really the way that business is evolving now, not only for the clients that MSPs serve, but the MSPs themselves and how they're structuring their offerings, and the vendor relationships that they are looking to engage in, so that they can reduce the thing that we talk about a lot on this program, Rich, the vendor sprawl, the platform sprawl, the pane of glass sprawl, right? And allowing the labor that they are investing in from their own team to have as high of a profit margin as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's really key, because that issue there, the idea that the most profitable way to utilize labor, is going to be to focus on the strategic issues, to outsource where you can outsource it. That's sort of what economists would call a secular trend. There is also this sort of cyclical trend that we've been talking about for years, where labor is tight, the tech unemployment rate is very, very low single digits right now, and so that puts particular pressure on MSPs to look for ways to stretch the labor force that they have right now. That will change over time, presumably, but that larger issue, that larger evolution, or larger logic that you were talking about there, of really getting maximum value from the labor that you invest in, however much that is, that's not going anywhere. And that too, I totally agree. That points in the direction of more managed security services. So Eric, let's move on to your tip of the week, because you were dropping hints before, and now I've got to know what it's all about.
Yeah, it's all about reflecting the true value of the services that MSPs provide to their clients, Rich. We talk a lot in the industry and in communities about, the really reflecting the value that we deliver to our clients, and getting clients to recognize, agree to, and appreciate that value in ways that turn into increased profits for the MSPs that serve them, and the ability to expand their services within client relationships. Now, I'm not talking, Rich, about picking the right clients, A, B, and C. We've had those conversations before. I'm talking about making sure that the clients that you want to keep, and the clients that have the best growth opportunity for you, structuring a communication and client education strategy to regularly and consistently reflect the value that you bring to the client. And it can't be the same stuff that all of your competitors deliver. The value can't be what's in your solution stack, Rich, because it's getting harder and harder for today's buyers to discern when we're all using and supporting the same SaaS platforms, M365, Google, uh, solutions and things like that. We're all supporting these SaaS applications. We're supporting infrastructure. So the differentiation, Rich, has to be the strategic value. And how do we communicate that to clients? I speak with enough partners that say, you know what? I try to schedule these strategic business reviews with them. They may take the first couple, but then they just ghost me and they don't keep those appointments. Well, hint, hint, they're not seeing value in them. So let's adjust the value proposition and make sure that we are reflecting that value to our clients. How can we do that? 3 quick tips, Rich. Number one, regularly communicating the value, meaning, here's a great example that used to happen to us all the time when we had our MSP practice, Rich, is the clients asking for things and us not reflecting the value of it and or charging for it, stuff that falls outside the scope, or technicians going way outside the scope of our agreement and just doing it because they want to keep the client happy. There's nothing wrong, Rich, with doing something for valued clients and not charging them for it. But where I think MSPs have an opportunity is to reflect the value of what that is, and then communicating that during regular meetings, and then even on the invoices that are being sent out, documenting what we did extra, and then showing them what that price would have been, and then doing a no bill at the bottom of that invoice. We don't want to itemize everything, but just basically indicating on the invoice that, hey, we did this additional work provided for, good client relationship or something, and, a discount on that. Something that lets them know, hey, you guys are doing us a solid here. Because one thing I can promise you, Rich, is clients don't remember all the free stuff that we give them, but boy, oh boy, they will remember the last mistake that technician made, right? The last time they were on site. So let's make sure that we are providing regular updates, communications when we are meeting with clients, reminding them, hey, we love the relationship. That's why we went ahead and did these extra things and, and did not bill you for it, right? Something like that. So just keeping that top of mind. Number two, providing some educational content in terms of communications, newsletters, webinars for existing clients, right? That reinforces the value of the relationship that we have, articles and things like that. These are things that typically tend to be the Achilles heel of MSPs, right, Rich? It's like, hey, promoting our value, doing some marketing, let's showing them in our newsletter. Here are the things that we're adding to our solution. Like, here are the things that we are doing to protect your organization. Inviting them to a webinar that focuses on a component of the portfolio of services that we deliver to clients and reflecting to them how they can utilize it, what it protects them from, and the value that it brings to them. Number three, if we're doing those things, Rich, we have a much better shot at getting clients to agree to strategic meetings. And these strategic meetings, call them SBRs, QBRs, a strategic meeting that adds value to a client's relationship. We know that there are new and different services and solutions that are being introduced into the channel that are not the typical thing that we see partners including, like ways to increase productivity and efficiency, right? We've talked about this a little bit, Rich. New vendors that are coming in that deal with a component of a business that typically MSPs don't think about, but now can look at and say, hey, I can add that as a strategic value, introduce to my client that helps them achieve a business goal or improve their business efficiency and operations that are maybe not something that we typically think about from a technology service provider. I'm thinking about efficiency improvement and productivity and time tracking solutions, Rich, that we're seeing come on the scene and things like that. But more importantly, lead the conversations around strengthening their cybersecurity posture, ensuring uptime and availability, making sure that we're training them and having in-house or maybe even virtual training sessions on how to identify, suspect emails, kind of avoiding phishing things that actually add value, not just we're here to present you the things that we've done. Please review my report card with me, mom and dad. Who
It's interesting. I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm here in Dallas attending the 20s Vision Conference. Tim Conkle, the CEO of the 20, delivered a keynote this morning, and he made a point that dovetails kind of nicely with the last third of those points that you just made there, which is if you want to be a valuable MSP these days, you really need to focus in on, he didn't say something strategic. He said, you've got to have a unique value proposition, because the stuff that you think are your strengths, your technical know-how, your great customer service, those are actually the most commoditized things that you do. Everybody has those same strengths, or certainly thinks that they do. And so you need something else that is going to set you apart from everybody else. And absolutely in this day and age, the more strategic that is, the more it reflects that you are on the cutting edge of technology and keeping your clients there. I think the better off that you're going to be. The other thing I think, or thought listening to you go through those three bits of advice there, Eric, is just this kind of ties back to a classic old school issue around managed services that I'm sure you experienced when you were a leading edge MSP yourself once upon a time, which is that if you're in the proactive IT business and you're really doing your job well, half the time your client doesn't know you're doing anything for them because nothing's going wrong. And that's what you're doing for them. Nothing's going wrong. And so you have to kind of get good when you're talking to the customer at showing them, well, here are all the patches we applied and all the threats we interfered with and all of the tickets that we addressed for you, and just kind of call attention to the value that you're delivering. All of that, I think you're saying, Eric, is table stakes now. You really need to be going above and beyond that and talking to them about the freebies that you're giving them, the strategic advice you're giving them, et cetera.
Absolutely, Rich. I mean, you should be, maybe spending 10% of a QBR talking about what we did for you that is expected, right? Nobody gets an award for closing tickets, Rich. Every MSP closes tickets, right? But it's also that strategic planning and that strategic cybersecurity and compliance discussion and planning. It's like, let's look at your 3-year plan. Let's look at your 5-year plan. Let's look at where we are now. Let's look at growth. Being that true business partner that the MSP's client sees as a critical component to their business operations today and in the future as they grow. Like, you want to be seen as invaluable to that organization's growth, so that when your competitors come knocking, the client basically refers them to you, right? Because we used to have that happen as well. Well, no, you can go talk to Eric. I'm not interested in what you're selling, and that's a great client.
Well, this is actually kind of a nice segue to our Spotlight interview segment this week. Eric, we're going to be talking with West McDonald. He is a consultant who works with MSPs to help them build AI practices. And what better way to show your clients that you are on the cutting edge, you're keeping them on the cutting edge, you're delivering strategic value, than to help them utilize the power of artificial intelligence in a way that's beneficial for them and profitable for you. So we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by West McDonald to have a conversation about specific present day AI services that you can deliver to your clients. Welcome back to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, our Spotlight interview segment. And as promised a moment ago, we are joined by West McDonald of GoWest.ai. West, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for having me on the show. As you know from past exchanges, there is nothing I love more than talking AI. So really glad to be here.
So we've actually known each other. You're working in the realm of AI right now, but you've been around in the channel for a long time. Tell folks a little bit about yourself, your background in the channel, and then also about GoWest.ai.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, we have known each other a while now, and I've been conducting workflow or managed print assessments or other types of, sort of 360 style assessments for the last 20 years or so. And about a year and a half ago, I got poked on the shoulder by somebody that introduced me to this little thing called ChatGPT. And once I saw that and the powers and the capabilities, even in those early days, I understood just how transformative it was going to be for our industry. So it didn't take me long. I started GoWest.ai, and our team of folks now does workflow assessments with an eye on AI solutions that can actually help solve those workflow solutions. So really looking at productivity, looking at trying to use AI in ways far beyond what people think of as just having a chat assistant or being able to talk to AI, to accomplish things. So really excited. Clearly, it is such a hot business area. The last 9 or 10 months in particular for us, we've been having some struggles with trying to figure out how to manage growth, and they're good problems to have. So, very excited to contribute however I can today on the show.
Now your customers are not, if I remember right, 100% MSPs, but you do work a lot with MSPs. And as it happens, just a few days ago, I was interviewing somebody from D&H, the big distributor, and we were talking about AI. And he was saying basically there's an enormous amount of interest among D&H partners in AI, and a sort of, rough, loose intention to get into AI, but not a lot of confidence among MSPs in their ability to deliver AI services to their clients. They're a little bit wary about over-promising and under-delivering, not quite knowing the right thing to deliver. Is that consistent at all with your experience?
Yeah, it is. And, I can tell you that, part of the problem is, and, that MSPs traditionally, when you look at how they can offer AI to their customers, it doesn't fit their traditional business model, right? So when you look at things like offering solutions from some of the typical partners, and they're great partners, if you're working with Microsoft, if you're working with others to provide hardware solutions or Office 365 or other, sort of traditional MSP offerings, they don't fit all of the corners, if you will, for where AI can help businesses, right? And so that's the difficulty, is that they're having to look at working with partners and solutions that maybe they haven't worked with in the past. They're looking at having to help customers in ways that maybe starts in a different way than traditionally offering the services that they do, right? So it has been a hard ground. The MSPs that we work with, we always start with helping them understand that their customers don't know what they don't know, and that's where they need help first. So it's like D&H to be able to get rid of the mist around AI and figure out where some of the real practical solutions are that can help. So we always start with workflow problems first, never the solution. Unfortunately, a lot of people start there saying, give me an AI solution, help our business. So they're, well, I don't know your business yet. I don't know where you're having problems. So moving beyond just kind of chat capabilities, you really have to dig deep and understand where their workflows are challenging, where they have broken parts of their workflow that technology to date simply hasn't solved, and starting there. So working with MSPs to help their customers to do that. I will say that, MSPs should become their own customer first, right? In other words, start moving through some of these AI solutions internally to actually work on their own productivity, their own workflows, to build up some expertise to be able to deliver to their customers, right? So it is a different animal than what they're used to doing. I can tell you that for the other customers that I serve, it's also a different animal, right? So in the office equipment channel, which are typical, dealers that offer solutions for document management, for office productivity, usually related to copiers and printers, et cetera, it's a different service for them as well, right? But they kind of took the leap, I'd say, a couple of years ago when they started evolving and offering things like cybersecurity, started offering solutions outside of their traditional wheelhouse that were done in different ways. So I think they've got a little bit of a head start because they've already started that diversification within their organizations, but certainly nothing to be terrified of. It's just a different approach for those MSPs. And, I think the biggest problem with AI right now is that there's a lot of free versions, and then people try it. They don't really know how to use it. It doesn't do what they think it's going to do. And so they just kind of give up, right? And that's our job as folks in the industry that are specialists in AI, is to help make sure that they use it for what it can be used for, to make sure they understand full stop what the limitations are, and being able to move forward with that knowledge, right? That's really paramount right now.
West, you covered a lot of ground there in your response, and I want to bring it back to the MSP focus. Being a recovering MSP, I still embody that, that sensibility and working with MSPs and things like that. And I found that MSPs can kind of get stuck in a a a vision of what their value is, to be kind of managing infrastructure, to delivering, service desk support, cybersecurity now, cloud migrations, things like that. AI is, as you mentioned, it's a unique and different animal. And I don't suspect that a lot of MSPs immediately see this as an opportunity to add more value and deliver services that they can wrap to become more strategically valuable to their client relationships. So, what's your response to that? What are the barriers preventing MSPs from really seeing this in a way that may enable more conversations, and from gaining the skills and knowledge to really deliver something of value that actually returns ROI to them as well?
Yeah, it's happening so quickly. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning that what they traditionally are accustomed to offering, it doesn't fit, right? That this is different. The MSPs that we do work with today have had to make a leap. And that leap was to be able to, first of all, to go to their clients and say, we're going to start with an assessment. This is different. It's not a service offering as we're traditionally, offering you, but it's going to help us understand where your workflows are broken. And once we do that, then we can come forward as a traditional MSP and help you with some solutions that we can layer in to solve those problems, right? Very similar to the stack they're using for cybersecurity and other things, right? But again, it's not starting with that solution. It's not trying to move what's already known into the environment. It's trying to go with the unknown first and then coming up with those solutions to fix it. The other thing that we do with MSPs is give them a monthly recurring revenue stream by helping them understand that those customers are going to need help with integration. They're going to need help with ongoing implementation of AI initiatives. And the MSP is in the best position to do that, right? That they've been helping them with all these other services first. So that's really the leap I talk about. They have to start with the assessment, and then they can start moving into services that might look and feel a little bit more like what they're used to delivering today. And again, different partners are going to be different brand names. They're going to be different solutions than they're necessarily used to dealing with today. Some of them will be the same, obviously with Office 365, with Microsoft, with their Copilot Pro offerings, etc. Some of the hardware solutions through Lenovo that maybe they're traditionally used to dealing with. There are still layers that they'll be adding, but I'll be the first to tell you they're not enough. You're not going to be an MSP and solve a customer's problems just with the hardware and just with the software pieces with the traditional offerings that you have today. It's a good start, but it's not the end game.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about this conversation and where it's going is it really isn't in a lot of ways about AI itself. I mean, the real service that you're talking about delivering, I think this is what Eric was getting at as well. It's a very high value service, which is to say, it's not about hardware and software and keeping the lights on and the infrastructure running. It's about assessing your workflows, understanding the business processes, doing business process optimization, which is a more valuable kind of offering for the MSP to be doing. But it also might be a little unfamiliar to a lot of folks. So, I mean, in terms of where we're at today and getting started as an MSP and so on, how much of what they need to be doing is educating themselves about AI, and how much is it about educating themselves about this kind of business process optimization relationship and sales motion?
Yeah, that's why I said they have to become their own customer first, right? Before they start offering this to the world. Because the best way to learn these things is to experience them, that they have to move through their own workflows and figure out where that fits. I'll give you one example. So if you're offering cybersecurity for a customer, if you're not talking about AI and how it's used in the office, then that's a discredit to that offering, right? So one of the first things that we do with MSPs is work with their customers to build AI policy and guidelines for the organization that align with their cybersecurity practices, right? So much like in cybersecurity, when we actually, it's never enough just to have the tools to keep us safe. We have to train users, have to teach them how to avoid phishing campaigns, how to avoid clicking on that tempting email. It's the same thing with AI, with shadow AI, right? That most people, because there's so many free versions of different AI tools out there, because it's so unregulated, because it's so new, that they are unwillingly introducing shadow AI into their organizations. And MSPs can help with that. So that's one of the first areas that they can kind of tie it to one of the offerings that they already have today to get customers thinking about responsible use and secure use of AI.
You know, we've heard the term shadow being used in different ways. This is the first time I've heard the term shadow AI being used, Wes. So I appreciate that. And, you know, so my question, it becomes in terms, I love the idea of an assessment, right? I think MSPs, that's an easy to understand concept. It's like, well, hey, we do assessments, we do infrastructure assessments, we do cybersecurity assessments.
Sure.
You're saying that there's now an AI assessment that is kind of maybe the first step to evaluating what the strategy might be for that MSP to assist that client in improving their, their business process, optimizing that. So this is also not an unfamiliar term for MSPs, BPO, business process optimization. For some MSPs, that may feel like a daunting cliff as well, right? So we're talking about business process optimization, AI assessments, tying in with cybersecurity. This seems to me, Wes, to feel like we need to rethink our overall strategy with our clients that includes kind of AI, how it affects or ties into cybersecurity, along with the value that we're going to improve your business processes, Mr. or Mrs. Client, so that you can deliver, your team can operate more efficiently and profitably here. So what are the core components of this kind of larger strategy, would you think, that features AI as kind of a lead component?
Yeah, I want to start with what you said about having to change, kind of how we approach our businesses, right? That we've been here before, right? When, back in the day when cloud services, you remember when cloud was a dirty word, right? That people didn't trust it at all. And it had to become quickly, as it took off, a core part of how we, service our customers, right? AI is going to do the same thing. So although it's not an area of expertise so far, it's going to have that same kind of impact. It's going to have to be part of what we deliver to our, our customers. So it's good that the assessment piece at least kind of ties into something that they're, familiar with, right? For the other pieces, that they can reach out to people that's all they do all day long, right? So at GoWest.ai, for example, that's what we do. We offer our services through partners. We don't sell directly to end user customers, right? That we become kind of that mechanism, if you will, for an MSP, for an office equipment dealer, for a managed IT provider, to be able to hit the ground running with AI services for their clients through a trusted brand. So that's one way to do it. And I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, that if they do want to build a practice internally themselves, that what they really need to look at is how they're doing their assessments today for other assets of their MSP practice, and how they might be able to tie in AI and business process optimization into that, right? It's just got to be an integral wrapped in part. Of course, that's every business's decision, is which part do we outsource for now until we feel that we're comfortable, and or do we just start this from scratch and do it ourselves? I will say that the hardest part, because this is such a new space, it's like the early days of the internet. You remember the .com before the .bomb? It's almost like every day there was 1,000 new solution sets that are out there, and trying to navigate that and figure out which of those pieces is actually going to work in their business, very difficult. And there's another hard part to that story, is that they're going to make some decisions for their business, some solutions which are not going to be around in a year, right? That there are going to be some experiments that have to take place simply because we can't sit still, and it is changing so quickly. Providers are buying each other up very quickly. There's investment dollars in a lot of areas. So yeah, it's going to, buckle up. It's going to be some interesting days, but we have to get started.
Yeah, in terms of getting started, we're talking about building a strategy and a motion around assessments and workflows and process optimization. And all that stuff does take time. But as I mentioned, I've interviewed D&H recently. They, like all the other big distributors, are talking to their partners about Microsoft Copilot as something that you can go out and make money with in AI right away. It may be that there is no right answer to this question from your point of view, but are there low-hanging fruit opportunities in AI right now that anyone in our audience could be or should be thinking about delivering to their customers right away as they work on this larger plan for the future?
Yeah, there are, and I call them kind of the AI trifecta, right? And so the first thing that everybody should be doing is making sure that they're using a corporate grade level of AI. So you remember I mentioned shadow AI, right? That if they're using Copilot, they should be using Copilot Pro. If they're using ChatGPT, they should be using the Team Edition. And honestly, those are really the two that we recommend the most today. And the reason being that those Team Editions and the higher level subscription editions with Microsoft come with a private workspace, right? And with OpenAI and their ChatGPT offering, it's actually SOC 2 compliant and feels very much like using, let's say, Office 365 or other trusted sort of cloud platform, applications, right? So that's number one. Stop using the free stuff and make sure that you're using one of the business grade editions, if you will, of what they're doing. The second thing I would add is make sure that you're using AI as an assistant. So to be able to take notes, to be able to be there during interviews, to be there to summarize things and to create tasks. So the one that I use myself personally, although we do work with all of them, integrates with my CRM. So once I'm finished a call with a client, I don't have to write down my notes and then remember to put them into the CRM. That happens automatically. The second piece is that it goes into task management as well. I personally use Asana for that. And so once I'm finished, my tasks automatically get tabled into Asana, right? So that'd be number two. Get an assistant straight away that can start to help you to feel a different value proposition than just conversing with AI, right? So if you think about it, it's kind of the first example of what I would call a light action model, where it's actually doing a function which is kind of invisible. You don't have to interact with it to do it. It's just sitting there, doing stuff beside you, right? The third thing, and I would say probably the most important part of this trifecta, is develop your own AI guidelines and policies, ones that you're going to incorporate internally and ones that you're going to help your customer to develop. You don't have to be an AI expert to be able to help your customers to use AI safer today, right? Build the guidelines, the policies. We have free templates, which we share with MSPs so that they can get a head start on that. And those would be the three, I would say, low-hanging fruit, right? Very, very easy to sort of implement. Much more secure than just using the free versions. Protects the organization because then at least people within the organization at the MSP and their customers understand how they're allowed to use AI and what they're allowed to use it for, right? So those would definitely be the three that I recommend pretty much with every client that I talk to get started.
Wes, I like the idea that you shared as kind of like, governance and kind of a strategy and things like that when we're talking about AI, and I think that everyone that listens to this podcast will be familiar with the term garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of the value that AI brings, it seems to me is related to the quality of the data that you're feeding it or that you're using or exposing it to, right? So is consolidating and kind of cleaning up a business's data a good opportunity for MSPs, or helping them do that as part of this assessment and preparation for implementing and optimizing AI for the organization? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, the data part is very important, right? And but I guess there's a difference with they can actually use AI to help them clean up that data, right? So this is one of the things that I help clients with is that unlike a traditional data cleanse where we're going through and trying to standardize everything, right? That AI is pretty good at looking at both structured and unstructured data, as long as it's trained on what kind of things to expect with that unstructured or let's say less than perfectly cleansed data, right? One of the clients that I work with, we've actually been going through a more automated ordering system for them. So when they get orders from their clients, the orders come in weird and wonderful formats, right? Sometimes it's the right part number, sometimes it's not. And the problem is with that kind of data is it doesn't come clean. You can't ask the client to send you that clean data. If they're going to give you money, they'll send you the data in a way that they want to, right? So we've developed AI to be able to cleanse that for them, right? To train it on what those things look like, what it probably means. I'll give an example. So, when you're looking at, let's say, a column which is required for the ordering system, which is quantity, right? Well, sometimes it's quantity, sometimes it's QTY, sometimes it's hashtags, sometimes it's a bunch of different things. And you can't necessarily clean that data, you can't exactly expect your customers to clean that data when they send it to you, but you can use AI to clean that data before it comes in-house, right? So definitely. But again, the big difference is you can actually alleviate a lot of those cleansing constraints, which we previously had, by training AI how to actually help you to cleanse that data. Yeah.
A lot of what we're talking about here is project work, right? We'll come in, we'll do an assessment, we'll identify a workflow optimization opportunity and help you implement that, or we'll come in and clean up your data. Where are there MRR, recurring revenue opportunities in AI? And if so, where are they?
Yeah, there's a couple. So one is the fractional chow piece that I'd mentioned at the beginning, right? That clients are going to be looking for help. They're going to see the initiatives that they could implement, and they're going to realize we don't have the people to do it. So they're going to have the ability to actually get contracts with those clients. We typically start with a 1-year contract with our clients to help them roll out initiatives. Some people do 6 months, some people do 2 years, whatever, right? But that's a consistent, regular monthly recurring revenue that they get to be able to roll those solutions out. The second way that they can make money is that most of the solutions we have at GoWest.ai, we've got about 35 validated solutions, ones that we've tested, ones that we've looked at. Clients don't necessarily always have to go with those. They can go with their own. But any of the ones that you do represent and that you can put your name behind, you can get affiliate revenues from those organizations once those solutions are implemented, right? So you will get revenue share from the solutions that are put in place. And so it's, I would say that it's really important for them when they're looking at partners to make sure that that's in place. The hard part is a lot of the AI solutions right now, they're direct to consumer, right? And the trick is to make sure that even some of those, like ChatGPT, for example, it's difficult to make money on that unless you're a very, very large, I think they've only got 1 or 2 partners now where they actually do revenue shares, that it's those other solutions that aren't necessarily the main chat engine, which is where they're going to make their money, right? So all of the organizations that we work with, once we're willing to put our name behind it, do have revenue share opportunities through their affiliate programs.
Okay. West McDonald, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week. AI is such an enormous topic, obviously such an enormous topic of interest with our audience. Anytime we can have a conversation with somebody who makes it a little bit more specific and talks about approaching it in a more practical way, it's interesting for us and I'm sure valuable for listeners and viewers. So thank you so much for joining us. Where can folks get in touch with you, learn more about GoWest.ai?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. The QR code that I have up on my screen there is probably too small to read, but just very simply, Go West, young man, right? So GoWest.ai. You can reach us there. We're also obviously on LinkedIn. As I mentioned prior to the interview, we actually have our own series, our own podcast online called Assessments and Insights. We do it every 2 weeks, so they can find that on LinkedIn as well. We bring on, guests like yourself and experts outside of our own space even to add value. So, certainly recommend that, they check us out on our website and on LinkedIn, and we'd love to help. The one other thing I'll offer, Rich and Eric, is, again, for those policies and guidelines, We offer those absolutely just as a like a free service. If people want a copy of a statement of procedure to be able to help build those and some examples of what they look like, then they can reach out to us for those as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wes, thank you again. Folks, we are going to take a quick break here. When we come back on the other side, Eric and I will share some final thoughts on this very interesting conversation we just concluded. Have a little fun, wrap up the show. So stick around. We are going to be right back. All right, welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the show. Eric, it's interesting how that conversation with West dovetailed with stuff that we've been talking about in a very different context on this podcast in weeks past, which is this idea that, device management, cloud management, these basic infrastructure management services are, if they're not already commoditized, they're rapidly on their way to becoming commoditized. And what you really need to be kind of thinking about is, how do I provide more strategic value to the customer in terms of outcome-oriented solutions and not just products and that basic infrastructure service. And that's exactly what West is talking about. That's his whole take on AI. You don't think about that as a technology. You don't think about it as a product or something that you're bundling in with a bunch. You think of this as a means to an end, where the end, the value you're delivering to the client, is that ability to make your business run better. To improve workflows, iron out road bumps that are slowing you down and costing profitability. And so, it's like a twofer, Eric. If you sort of follow West's advice, you're both becoming that more competitive, strategic, high margin provider to your clients that you really need to be. And you're also kind of getting in on the AI wave.
Yeah, I tell you what, Rich, I was just soaking it all in as all of the questions, and discussions you and I have been having, like, as you say, over the past few episodes around AI and the opportunity around AI and how do MSPs monetize it. Is it too early? Is it a fad? Is it this and that? I now see a very clear path forward, thanks to Wes's insight, as to how MSPs can add more of that strategic value, that stickiness, and weaving in, AI with kind of cybersecurity, with business process optimization in a way that is familiar to MSPs. We're familiar, Rich, with doing assessments. We're familiar with asking the right questions and then putting together kind of a solution or a relationship that allows us to help that client with these, as you mentioned, business outcomes, right? So we're no longer the technology vendor, right? We are now the business partner, the business process partner, the security expert, the things that these new, I will say that, as I always say, the post-pandemic buyers are thinking about here. And what I loved best about it was Wes giving us these concrete examples of how to monetize the opportunity for MSPs that you and I have been kind of wondering what that is. The AI trifecta that he shared with us, right? So it's not only just kind of consulting, assessing, and then identifying the opportunity, but adding these additional platforms that a client can leverage to normalize some of this data. As he said, it's not a lot of hard work. I asked the question thinking, well, it sounds to me, I'm thinking, man, what do we need to do to prepare this? Well, no, we use AI to help us with all of that normalization. And then the integrations with these different platforms. I love that he shared how he's using platforms to help his workflow, giving our listeners the idea, wow, I'm thinking that myself, like, hey, we use AI too, Rich. And now I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm not using AI in the way he just said, where it's actually integrating with my CRM and then giving them my tasks and all that. Holy cow. And then the affiliate angle around earning additional revenue just because you're introducing these other platforms in your ultimate solution. to clients. So there's project revenue, there's ongoing MRR revenue from an ongoing advisory and consulting perspective, and there's kind of affiliate revenue to be had when we put together these packages and programs and present them to our clients. That adds real strategic business outcome value to them, making you much more sticky and important to that relationship, Rich.
And I'll just quickly point out one sort of a bonus payoff of using AI in relation to your CRM system, the way West is doing that, is that's something that you can show customers too. We've heard multiple times from people, including the chief commercial officer at HP, that having something in a meeting to actually show something that you're doing yourself in your business that you can actually show to a customer. Well, here's what I mean when I'm talking about, or other people are talking to you about AI. Here's a practical example that gives them something to latch on to, and it can be a starting point for a business. That might be the first project workflow project you do with them, is something that's around their sales process, for example. So lots and lots of good food for thought there. Thanks again to West McDonald for joining us. But that leaves us, Eric, with time for just one last thing this week on the MSP Chat podcast. And look, I am not going to editorialize on the Tesla Cybertruck. I imagine there are some people out in the audience here, and yes, some folks may own one, some folks may aspire to own one. There are certainly a lot of people who have some less than favorable, less than admiring things to say about the Tesla Cybertruck, and apparently raccoons have an opinion of their own about the Tesla Cybertruck based on some social media traffic from a gentleman who was spending the night. He was at a camping site in Michigan or Minnesota recently overnight. And in the morning when he returned to his Tesla Cybertruck, he discovered that raccoons had attempted to break in. And based on an assessment from people who are familiar with the behavior of raccoons at campsites generally, in this particular one, it was pretty clear to them that what was going on there is the raccoons thought that Cybertruck was a dumpster, and they were trying to get inside to see if they could find something tasty to eat. Again, I'm not endorsing the raccoons' point of view. I'm simply saying there are raccoons out there who have trouble mistaking a Tesla Cybertruck for a dumpster.
Rich, I'm going to refrain from making any additional comments about that very humorous story.
And with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Eric and I will be back next week with another episode of the show for you. Until then, please allow me to remind you that we are both a video and an audio program, which means that if you are listening to us on audio, but you would be interested to check us out on video, you need to go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. You'll find us there pretty easily. If you're watching us on YouTube, but you're into audio podcasts, go to wherever it is you get those, because it's almost a sure thing you're going to find us there too. And however you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people like you find and enjoy the show. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson. They are both part of the team here at Channel Mastered. They would be happy to help you with a podcast of your own, but podcasts are just one of the many, many things we do for our clients at Channel Master. To learn more about that, you want to go to www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister company called MSP Mastered. That's Eric working directly with MSPs to grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that at www.mspmastered.com. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in a week's time. Until then, folks, please do remember that you can't spell channel without MSP.